Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in. Take a deep breath and just imagine, for a second, that we're sitting together by a small campfire. The sun's setting, the stars are just starting to peek out, and everything's pretty quiet. If you listen closely, you can hear the wind in the trees. Today, we're not just going to talk about some boring, strict set of grammar rules. No way. We're going to look at language as a living, breathing thing, something that literally travels across mountains and oceans.
So have you ever actually wondered about the exact words we're using right now? I mean, every single word you say has this incredibly long, crazy journey behind it. Thousands of years ago, there were no dictionaries, no schools, but there were people speaking a language that we now call Proto-Indo-European. Now, I know that sounds like a super heavy academic term, but really, just think of it as the great-great-grandparent of our language. Those ancient people, they sat around their own fires whispering about the sun, the water, their families, and those early sounds, they were the seeds of English, planted by folks who were simply trying to survive and share their lives.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to time travel together through 5 major eras: the ancient roots, the French influence, the Great Sound Shift, crossing the ocean, and finally, the global tongue. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Ancient Roots. The birth of Old English.
We're zooming all the way back to the 5th century. The Roman Empire is losing its grip, right? And on the shores of northern Europe, you've got warriors and farmers from tribes known as the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. They're pushing these wooden boats into a freezing, cold sea, heading straight for a green island called Britain. And when they landed, they didn't just bring their swords. They brought their rough, strong language with them.
Now, what's totally mind-blowing is that these ancient words are literally the bones of the English we speak today. I mean, listen to these. In Old English, hus meant house, man meant man, friend meant friend. You can hear it perfectly, can't you? They're these short, punchy, tribal words that completely built the foundation of our everyday language.
But, language never really stays isolated for long. Cut to the 8th century, and new visitors show up from Scandinavia, the Vikings. And this is such a brilliant example of how a language adapts to survive. Picture a Saxon farmer and a Viking neighbor trying to trade goods. To even understand each other, English just organically started shedding its really complicated grammar. Words like sky, skin, leg, and window got mixed right into the pot. The language simplified because, well, real people needed to communicate to live.
Section 2. The French influence. A double language is born.
So the real game changer happens in the year 1066. William the Conqueror arrives from France, takes the throne, and suddenly overnight the kings and the rich lords are all speaking French, while the poor farmers are still stuck speaking Old English. It's this fascinating class divide that actually gave us our massive vocabulary. The English farmers, they were out in the dirt looking after the pig, the cow, and the sheep. But the French nobles, they were inside their castles eating pork, beef, and mutton. This is exactly why English has so many words for the exact same thing, like house versus mansion, or start versus commence. English essentially became a double language.
And that brings us to Middle English. Think of Old English kind of flowing like a river underneath the solid ice of French rule. It didn't die out. It survived in the hearts of everyday people. Shopkeepers had to learn a little French for the lords, but they spoke English to their neighbors. It was this beautiful, completely messy, and highly creative era where English learned to adapt by stealing the absolute best words from both worlds.
Section 3. The Great Sound Shift. Changing the voice of a language.
Okay, so in the 1300s and 1400s, something totally wild happened. And it wasn't about adding new words. It was about how people actually sounded. As folks started migrating from the countryside into big, crowded cities like London, all their accents mixed and morphed. Get a load of this. Before this shift, the word bite sounded like beat, out sounded like oot, and feet, it sounded like fate. Can you even imagine that? English was basically like a teenager going through puberty. Its voice was cracking and changing into something totally new.
This brings us to a massive aha moment for anyone who has ever struggled to spell in English. Why does night have a silent K in GH? Well, because before the great vowel shift, people actually pronounced every single one of those letters. They literally walked around saying knicht. Our totally frustrating, weird modern spelling is really just a frozen snapshot of how people used to talk hundreds of years ago. We changed the sounds, sure, but we stubbornly kept the old letters.
By the late 1500s, the Renaissance hit. People needed new words for all these brand new thoughts. Enter William Shakespeare. He didn't just use English, he aggressively played with it. He invented or popularized over 1,700 words that we still use every single day. Words like lonely, hurry, generous, bedroom, all thanks to him.
He also tossed us phrases like being in a pickle or having a heart of gold. Shakespeare proved to everyone that early modern English wasn't just some basic tool for trading cows, it had this incredible emotional depth. It was flexible, it was poetic, and it was profoundly human.
But, creativity needs just a little bit of order. When the printing press arrived in England, books suddenly became cheap and they were everywhere. But the printers had a massive headache. Everyone spelled words differently depending on what town they lived in. So to fix it, they just chose London spelling to standardize the whole thing. For the very first time, English had real rules. Standard English meant knowledge could spread like wildfire across the country. The language was finally organized, stable, and, well, it was ready to board some ships.
Section 4. Crossing the Ocean. English branches out.
The year is 1607. English settlers cross the dangerous Atlantic and finally land in North America. They step off the boats, look around, and see animals and plants they had absolutely never seen back in the green fields of England. I mean, how do you name something you've never even seen before? Well, you listen to the people who were already living there. English acted like a giant sponge, adopting Native American words like skunk, moose, raccoon, and hickory. The language had to adapt to survive this vast, wild new landscape.
Now let's talk about the deliberate split between British and American English. After the American Revolution, Noah Webster, the dictionary guy, he wanted America to have its own totally independent identity, so he intentionally simplified spellings. He changed color to color and theater to theater. Plus, when new inventions like the automobile came along later, the two countries were already living separate lives, which is exactly why the British say bonnet and boot and Americans say hood and trunk.
Oh, and here is a fantastic surprise about pronunciation. You might assume that Americans changed the way the letter R sounds, right? Actually, scratch that. Back in the 1700s, almost everyone in England pronounced the R at the end of words like car. But in the 1800s, the British upper class in London decided it was super fashionable to drop the R sound. That trend spread across the UK, but it never really made it across the ocean. So American English actually preserved the much older original sounds. How wild is that?
Section 5. The Global Tongue, a language for the world.
1.5 billion. Think about that massive number for a second. That is how many people speak English today. But here's the truly amazing part. The vast majority of those people are not native speakers. They are folks learning it as a second or even third language. English doesn't just belong to England or America anymore. It's the global tongue. It belongs to a pilot in Brazil, a scientist in Germany, and millions of focused learners all over the globe.
And in the digital age, it's evolving faster than ever before. The internet has birthed completely new words like blog, app, selfie, and emoji. In English, it remains a wonderfully hungry language. It happily borrows the beauty of other cultures, giving us everyday access to words like sushi from Japanese, yoga from Sanskrit, and safari from Swahili. It values connection over perfection every single time.
So the absolutely crucial point to take away from this entire explainer is beautifully summed up by this quote. English is a messy language because it has a messy history. All those bizarre spellings and that massive double vocabulary, they aren't mistakes made in some sterile laboratory. They are the beautiful scars of human survival. They're the results of tribes mixing, of culture shifting, and of people desperately trying to connect with one another over centuries.
When you speak English, your voice, your specific accent, and yes, even your mistakes are the absolute newest chapter in this ancient story. You are an active participant in a living legacy that started with whispers around a fire thousands of years ago. So the next time you use this language, I want you to ask yourself, how will you shape the history of English today?